Let's go ahead. I'll call the meeting to order. We do have quorum. First, is there any public comment items not on the agenda? I'm not seeing any. We'll move on to the PP&J minutes of November 25th that were included in your packet. Okay. All right. I wonder. We don't have our note taker. Can you? Okay. It was moved by Supervisor Krause and seconded by Supervisor McCarville, and that's the minutes of November 25th. Any discussion? Supervisor Can.
Just wanted to note, at least in the copy that I see on Register, the minutes don't seem to reflect the edits that we discussed in the last meeting. So I don't know if that should be the full copy on Register or.
Okay. Yeah, Supervisor Can. Yeah, why don't you look at the one that was in the packet and see.
No, this one does not have to be correct.
Okay. All right. Well, should we go through the corrections again to the minutes of November 25th? I think that would be the most expeditious way to do them. Do you remember what they were?
I do know that Amelia Maurer specifically got in contact to say that she was speaking. She did not speak, but she registered in opposition. She's just speaking in support. I also believe we discussed that nobody actually did speak explicitly in support, so I'm not sure if that's the proper place to put those two. It's going to be not fill out their sheets correctly or anything. Since we have a category of people who submitted registration slips that we seem to be not sure of exactly where they fit in, that might be a good place to put them. And I just know that there were a couple of people that talked to me about being put in the wrong place. For instance, I believe Lenore Hansen and Heather Rosenfeld, who were in just the category of submitted registration slips, both registered explicitly in opposition. And finally, I think Awa Fofana is listed as is supposed to be speaking in opposition.
Supervisor Pan, I hate to ask this, but we've been having trouble getting these corrections.
Yeah.
Would you mind sending an email?
Yeah, and I think I asked before, so I can resend it.
Okay, why don't you resend the email to, do you know Stephanie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, resend it to Stephanie.
And copy me, please, because I get all these notes down and it's just so chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then should we wait till the next meeting to approve them? I think we should. Let's. Yeah, motion to table. Krause and McCarville, all in favor of tabling the minutes of November 25th, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are tabled. What about December 9th?
Minutes do show, and maybe this is okay on the presentations. Of course, we held off on that presentation because of other things that were going on. The minutes do show this presentation was not acted on. Community safety update. It's kind of odd if it says it wasn't acted on. Well, yeah, it wasn't acted on. It wasn't given. We want to get that accurate, correct?
I think it's implied, right? It's given.
No, it says not acted upon. I would prefer that it
Oh,
say.
it doesn't say not given and not?
No.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yes, we
it
said-
says this presentation was not acted on.
No,
Which
but
doesn't
I-
imply that we got the presentation, which we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's get that, okay. Let's see if there are other ones besides that. Because if it's just the one, I think we can make the change up here and we can vote on the minutes. I don't mean to rush Supervisor McCann. minutes as corrected by indicating that the Save Communities Coalition presentation was not given. And it's moved by Supervisor Willett and seconded by Supervisor Krause. Any more discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, we don't have any fund transfers. We have Mickey Beal here. Mickey is our, everybody knows Mickey, maybe not in the audience, but Mickey is our, are you actually our lobbyist? Or our legislative lobbyist. And she's going to go through the platform that Dane County has. So, Mickey, you want to come up and let's see if I can figure out how to turn you on.
I do have extras if anybody would like a handout. I have some up here.
Are you on? Oh, I got number 2.
I'll probably be able to.
Yeah, but we need that when we get to the public comment, we need to get it fixed. So, are you sure I just didn't push the right? Oh. Could be I'm not plugged. Oh, wait a minute.
No, it's plugged in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mickey Beal. I'm the legislative lobbyist for Dane County. And I'm here with the legislative agenda, Resolution 355, which has been traveling through all the standing committees. I do have extra handouts of the agenda and my other information if anyone is interested. I'll just start out real briefly with this, with the pictures. I thought you might want to see the newly elected freshman legislators for this session. And the new ones in Dane County are second to the last in the first row. Representative Dave Considine replaced Representative Clark. And then on the back side, Representative Lisa Subic, the second to the the second in on the first row, replaced Representative Brett Holsey. And then on the back side, third to the last, is Senator Janice Ringhand, and she replaced Senator Cullen. So Senator Ringhand, Representative Subic, and Representative Considine are the new members in terms of the Dane County Legislative Delegation. And then in the rest, this is the entire freshman class for the Senate and the Assembly. So I just thought I'd share that with you so you can see who is new to the legislature after the November elections. Before you, I did leave at your seats the Dane County Legislative Agenda, and I would just like to walk you through to highlight some of the points. There's a new section in the agenda. Some of you have been here before probably notice it. We have a new section called Eliminate Racial Disparities, and this was put together after meeting with a whole bunch of different people to take items that were in the agenda and compilate them under this new section. So these are all items that were in the agenda, but they're all put together in this new section. And I'll just walk you through some of them. The juvenile justice and career development for youth are both targeting young people who need programming and services to help them move on to careers or high school or further education. And both of those items will hopefully lead students in that direction. Also, there's always, the first item is always asking for increased money for intervention and intensive treatment services for our young people who have tangled into the court system. Early Childhood Initiative is, some of you may have known about this for a number of years, but the Early Childhood Initiative provides funding for in-home visits, for helping parents find work, and to create a stable home environment as possible for newborns and young children. And so we also have the early childhood zones, which are a complement to that. And I know that's been a part of our budget. And so that's another program, and the hope with all that is to give babies and young children as much preparation as possible for their school careers and further careers. And for those of us with gray hair, we know, we've seen the studies, that early childhood leads children on, the best path possible in terms of their future and into adulthood. Apprenticeship and internships would cover unemployed post-high school students who have graduated and still have not found employment. And so the hope with that is to create more programs to target that population. The 17-year-olds is probably the biggest issue, and for those of you who are new to the board and not aware, under current law, 17-year-olds, violent and nonviolent, with nonviolent and violent charges, are eligible to be sent to the adult prison and adult correctional system. So we have 17-year-olds in the adult prison population, and there is a movement in the legislature, it's bipartisan, to bring at least the nonviolent 17-year-olds out of the adult prisons and then bring them back into the counties for the support services that they so need. So that has been an ongoing, it hasn't been introduced yet, but meetings have been going on throughout the summer to try to make this happen, and it just doesn't make sense to, have any of you seen how young a 17-year-old or
Yes.
a 17-year-old? Oh,
I have.
okay. I mean, they're very young, and to send them into the adult prison population is just, and they are in the adult prison population. They are not in a segregated unit, so. But you have, Mr. Chair?
Yes. The first one, when I went and sat with Court Commissioner Moyer, the very first one, I thought, what is that 12-year-old doing here? And he actually was 17. He was waved into the open court. He was there with his dad.
So that's been a big focus. We've averaged around between 13 to 51 cases like that in Dane County. I know our judges have been very attentive to trying not to wave kids into adult court, but sometimes that is
Is it
difficult.
my understanding at age 17 they don't have the option, it's automatic?
Yes, unless the court waives different, but yes, it is automatic. 17-year-old, doesn't matter if you were shoplifting, if you picked up a pack of gum at the PDQ in your neighborhood, it doesn't matter what you did, that is a path to adult prison. So this issue is very important right now. Countywide youth collaboration, this has been ongoing in terms of the gang task force, but now I know the county has approved and the board has approved the mental health task force, so it brings professionals from all backgrounds together to try to tackle mental health issues in schools and other areas for younger citizens. Let me see what else might be of interest to you. As you know, youth aids is an ongoing battle to get increase in funding. The legislature and the governor have consistently cut youth aids, It used to be funded much higher, and now over the last like 5-6 years, the dollar amounts for youth aids have been cut consistently in each budget. So the hope this time is, even with a $2 billion deficit, is to try to see if money can be invested in youth aids, which also hopefully will assist in keeping kids out of the adult prison, because youth aids funds a variety of programs for young people to keep them on a path of careers in school and so forth, and assistance. Relative caregivers, there's continuation to make sure that they are adequately funded if they are taking care of their non-custodial children that they are have been given are in charge of. Something else that you're not going to find in this section, but has been added by other committees, is to oppose drug testing for food stamp benefits. As you know, I'm sure the governor will speak to it tonight in his State of the State, but the state legislature and the governor want to do drug testing as a basis, as criteria for receiving food stamp benefits. But the Republican Assembly wants to go further. They want to require photo ID on every EBT card. They want to require that none of those cards, restrict use of those cards to casinos, liquor stores, and strip clubs. Love that. They also want to restrict what food is purchased.
Wow.
They only want certain foods purchased with the card. They believe that people who receive the card are buying too much junk food, so they should restrict what is able to be purchased. They also want to connect work time limits and then the drug testing to the benefits. And then another thing the Assembly Republicans would like to see is an annual benefit statement that would go out every year to every person who is receiving these benefits to show how much money the state has given them on an annual basis. So these are some of the things. Anyways, in my journey through the standing committees, one of the standing committees did recommend opposing the drug testing as a basis for food stamps, so we will have that position. Also, another thing that's not in here that I want to bring to your attention is all the landlord-tenant changes that have been brought by the legislature that pretty much restricts people's ability to rent or have rights under the law. And it also negated all local government ordinances that cover landlord regulation. All that was negated. So one of the standing committees wants to delete those new laws that restrict landlord regulation and all the changes that were put forth in what is called the landlord-tenant reform bill. Dental access is another area that is a growing problem. I know we've seen a lot of commercials on TV about these new dental plan programs, but it's something that people need to take more seriously, because dentists generally don't see people who are on medical assistance. I'm sure some of you have experienced this through your dental visits, but it's not a regular practice of theirs to take medical assistance for people that are coming in to see them with for a checkup or other problems. So that we would like to see more attention drawn to dental access, dental care access. All the voter registration changes, as you know, it's been a common position of Dane County to oppose the voter ID law, to oppose the absentee hour changes that were made, to oppose getting rid of same-day voter registration, which this continues to be a priority of some legislators, to weaken the voter registration and voter laws to a point where you have to question the validity of voting in general. But anyways, we do oppose a lot, almost, in fact, all the changes that have been proposed so far by the legislature or voted on and passed. Some of these are tied up in court right now still. The Regional Transit Authority was a way for people without transportation, even cars, bikes, bus, whatever, to get around. As you know, RTA was in place, it was moving along, things are moving forward on it, and then the first budget bill under the new governor eliminated all RTAs. There were 3 RTAs that were passed, regional transportation authorities that were passed in the state of Wisconsin, and the governor eliminated all 3 of the RTAs that were funded and moving along at a pretty good pace. This would have covered commuter lines here in Dane County, commuter trains, and a coordinated bus, a multimodal bus taxi system, mostly dominated by a bus system, and of course, now that is not, it was eliminated from the, in the budget. Another thing is probation and parole, looking at increasing the daily rate. It's kind of remained in the low 30 per day reimbursement rate, and I think everyone would like to see it back up to where the state has always committed they would pay the rate, which is over $40 a day. And so that is also an issue in terms of probation and parole. Prisoner reentry. This is an area a lot of people in our community and across the state don't generally take a close look at. But this is talking about helping prisoners get jobs and get assistance in coming back into their communities. There is a movement in the legislature through the speaker. The speaker is almost going to make this a priority to look at funding work for prisoners who are being released. And he has had personal experience with this over the Christmas holidays. And because of his experience, he would like to see more focus and more attention and funding put into this area. So we might see some changes in that regard. Minority outreach, the state needs to do a better job and working along with Dane County at making sure people are aware of all the programs that are available, to them, whether it's related to mental health or other areas. And so we would like to see more responsibility taken to educate our citizens about what programs are available for them to take advantage of. I already talked a little bit on the income maintenance programs, the landlord regulation. Minimum wage, as you know, in November, the voters approved taking minimum wage to $10.10 an hour here in Dane County, with a 73.4% yes vote and a 26.4% no vote. So the majority of Dane County residents and voters want to see minimum wage increased to $10.10. Something that is happening over in the Capitol. Last session, some of you may remember, we were talking about Dane County's living wage ordinance and how we pay $11.33 an hour to require our contractors to pay that to their employees. There was a bill that would have negated our authority to do that. It did not, it passed the Assembly, but it failed in the Senate. But that is coming back this session, and it appears that it might pass this time. So it would take away Dane County's authority to require a living wage of $11.33. So I just want to make you aware of that. This is going to be,
That line that talks about that doesn't make sense as we read it. Is that Dane County voters blank this item, yes or no?
that's in the sub that you will be receiving. Yeah, because when this was put together, the vote hadn't taken place yet. But that information will be in there. Medicaid expansion, as you know, that was rejected by the governor, but the county board still continues to have a position to, suggest that the governor and his departments take advantage of the Medicaid expansion dollars, because there's so many programs and things that can be done with this, that, I think we would probably be the most creative county in the state to come up with ideas for this, right, Lynn? County jail, I talked about the probation and parole holds. Also, I know the sheriff is committed to looking at alternatives, treatment alternatives, and other incarceration alternatives. And I know that will continue, and any, we'll be supporting, as we have, increases. Some of you may have heard of the TAD program. The TAD program received increased money this last session, but it will not go to counties that already get TAD funding. So we will not be eligible for that money. We're hoping there'll be a TAD increase next go around, and that it would be made available to counties like ours that take advantage of the program. Court interpreters are pretty important. In regards to providing interpreters to everyone, whether they have the ability to pay or not. And I know Carlo knows a lot about this, and it's just having a basic right for a person to have an interpreter available when they're going through the court system if they are not fluent in the English language. So we would support continued and increased funding for that program. And just so you know, a lot of times legislators don't see the need for a program like that and think that like a private entity should provide interpreters to people going through the court system. But it's best to have court interpreters that know the court system, know the lingo and the all the language as it relates. It is a different language, even beyond English in terms of the court discussions that occur. And then last is the Wisconsin Community Justice Reinvestment Act, and that was a proposal that has been put forth over the last 2 sessions. I don't know if it'll be introduced this session or not, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It wants people to take a more serious look at treatment versus incarceration in the court system. But it has not been successful in the last couple of sessions. And then also, as you are aware, the voters approved Medicaid expansion, the acceptance of Medicaid expansion in this last election, and they 81.7% voted yes to take the Medicaid expansion dollars, and 13.3% voted no. The rest of the sections, the next session deals, I'm not going to walk you through the whole thing, but it deals with criminal justice and public safety, and it covers everything from EMS services to conceal and carry or criminal background checks, the multi-line telephone system problem that 911 centers, not only ours but around the state, run into, have difficulties with. Mental health screenings, providing more funding for mental health screenings for inmates within the local jail population, and so forth. So I don't know how far you want me to go into. Another thing that was approved since you adopted the legislative agenda was legalizing marijuana. And so the voters of Dane County did approve legalizing marijuana with 64.5% yes votes and 35.5% no votes. So the voters of Dane County did approve the legalization of marijuana. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Anybody have any questions? Mike? I guess I have to do it. Supervisor Willett?
Thank
We talked a little bit about the communications surcharge for 9/11 system. We
Uh-huh.
have talked about that a little. As I read this, it isn't very clear. Are we looking here to support legislation to put another surcharge on, or are we looking for the
No,
county
we're-
to get the surcharge?
I think we're looking at recovering the money that was put in when the new surcharge happened.
So the way I
That
read
money
it-
was supposed to go to our
I
PSAP.
know that, and I would love to get that to our 911.
I know, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, but as I read this, it looks like what we're looking for is to have another tax on it, and that wording being the wording of it. So can we fix the wording of that? And it also talks about removing the sunset clause within Wisconsin Act 48. What does that mean?
Well, when Governor Doyle took the money, he put in a sunset clause, which was, this should be updated. The sunset clause has since expired, so it's not even applicable anymore.
Okay.
So we could just even remove that statement.
So could we fix all of number 7 that says communication surcharge for 9/11 systems and change what the wording is and say redirect the money collected from the 911 center to the counties? Something simple like that? That's very clear that says we
Sure.
want the money?
Do you want to say it to me again, and we'll
Redirect the surcharges currently charged and direct
surcharge?
the money directly to the counties. I don't want the state to take it, I want us to get it.
Okay.
And that would take care of that Wisconsin, that sunset clause thing that was unclear, that would make that whole paragraph really clear of what we want.
Okay, you want that added to it, or do you want that to replace?
I want it to replace, because I think what's there is
Okay.
really confusing. It looks to me like you want to tag another charter on it, is what it means. And I've talked to you about it enough that I was surprised to read that, so I'd like to make it so that it's very clear that, in
Okay.
fact, we don't want another tax, we simply want the tax to go to where it's supposed to.
Okay, so
What,
support.
what line number is that, just so we get it up here?
That is line number 125, and the
On
heading
page
is,
3.
Okay.
the heading is communication surcharge for 911 system, and it goes on for about 5 lines, because this would simply state that we want the money to come directly to the county.
And we'll double check for the minutes, maybe,
So can I reread it to you?
Absolutely.
Support legislation to redirect, we should call it what it is, it's the, communication surcharge, because now it covers cell phones, Androids, smartphones, VoIP, everything.
Communication surcharge,
Uh-huh.
good word.
Support legislation, redirecting the communication surcharge, funding directly to counties.
Perfect. I think that's clear and concise. That's what we like.
Okay,
And then can I go with another one?
sure.
On page 5, under Veteran Services, number 1, and there's a clause there that says, Armed Forces support the Dane County soldiers who are presently serving, which is a wonderful line. Unfortunately, then it goes on and says, support protecting families and jobs rather than utilizing precious resources and funds to wage war. That's kind of a shame that we have to tag in there, not waging war when we're trying to support our veterans. I think that line is exceedingly tacky. I would make a motion to remove it from the point of supporting protecting families and jobs rather than utilizing precious resources and funds to wage war. Really like the point of course, supporting our veterans, which is what we all want to do. But we're just tagging a second sentence on there that is not doing the same thing.
This one might be controversial, so why don't we make it into a regular motion? It's moved by Supervisor Willett. Is there a second to removing that sentence? Okay, it doesn't look like you have a second, but this does go to the executive committee, so you have another shot at it there.
Okay.
And the floor.
And then I would have further questions. If we wanted something deleted, is that done here, or is that done on the floor, or?
It can be done here as an amendment or on the floor.
Okay. I would make a motion to delete page lines 57 through 66, which would remove the sections about voter registration, election day voter registration, and the RTA.
Okay,
delete lines. What?
Would be deleting lines 57 through 66.
All right.
is there a second to that one?
That's under the racial disparity section,
And yes, it is.
okay? And it would start with,
Okay,
It was
it's
the little
lines,
items 12 through 14
Yeah.
gives it exactly, but
Okay.
the lines would be 57 and 60.
Vicki, we're gonna vote on it. My sense is we need a second. Is there a second for that one? Supervisor Willett, I don't see a second, so again, that's the.
We'll be quiet.
Okay, does anybody, Supervisor Baer, see if I can figure out how to turn you on. Welcome, by the way. Oh, here. Okay. You're next.
Hi, first of all, I want to apologize to everyone for being late. I had,
A challenging day.
no, I was ice skating with my daughter yesterday and fell and apparently cracked my ribs, so it hurts to talk, but I don't think I can stop talking. It's not capable. I don't have that ability. So, I have a sort of a big picture question for you. I'm fine with the length and detail of this document. I appreciate it and support it, and thank you for the thoroughness and doing your job. The question is there support for maybe a broader cover statement, acknowledging that in general, the political philosophies of Dane County government currently do not match in general the political philosophies at the state government currently, and we are drafting this to have a conversation from different political angles. I wonder if it's helpful to have a cover, big picture. We oppose any deletion of local control. We support additional funding for the critical services that we do. And to have that at least be, because I know that legislators on the state capitol have commented to me that the lengthiness and thoroughness of this is sometimes overwhelming and sometimes prevents them from being able to say, be able to look at it quickly enough to be able to go on the assembly floor and say, my county opposes this, therefore I oppose it.
Well, first of all, I usually let them know our position on things, number one. Number two is, yes, the executive committee usually comes up with a top 10 or more. They go through each section and take a priority item. So they do have a one-page.
Maybe that's not remembering it from.
Yeah, and they do have like a little cover thing with it, and so they do have
Okay,
priorities that they do develop.
okay,
Sometime, I think this last go-around, 2 years ago they did,
yes.
4 years ago they didn't, so it just depends on the executive committee, but usually they do. And so it is encapsulated in terms of that priority sheet.
So if I can make a quick statement to my colleagues on PP&J, I'm the executive committee representative for PP&J. So that's where I'm remembering doing this, and I intend to be the PP&J voice on executive committee summarizing this again. So whether it's a discussion right now or through email, at a future point, if there are highlights that you think are appropriate for me to advocate for when we get to executive committee, please let me know, or we can talk about it this evening as well. Thank you.
And then, second, Madam Supervisor, is there are two phrases in the agenda. One that is kind of a generic statement about usurping local government and taking away local government authority, such as was done under the sand mining bill, where local government would no longer have a voice in the operation of sand mining in Dane County, for example. We do have generic statements that cover local government and funding. So there is a generic line in here that we, in terms of funding, so.
It gets lost in a 500-line document. It gets lost in a 500-line document that I want to help you be successful, and I want to help our representatives at the state capitol be able to quickly say, this is what my county
Believe me, I let
wants.
them know.
I know you do, but sometimes things happen very quickly. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Willett?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with All Supervisor Baird on a lot of the points. This document so needs a summary of the things that are important. Now, where we differ is, I think this document is a joke, and that all it is a wish list from everyone under the sun that puts their things down here. And it leaves you with a whole list of things. I understand. I just need to voice my opinion. I don't like this whole system. to a few more specifics. On page 9, talks about state election law, and it talks about recording name, addresses, and place of employment on people under $100. Doesn't say what they want to set that to. I'm surprised to see that. And I would move to strike lines 434 through 436. This is simply a lot more reporting. Our clerk already has trouble with getting all of these things done. There are a lot of election reports, campaign reports that are not done properly now. There are reports that should be followed up on and aren't. And the last thing we need is more things here, and especially places of employment. If someone's giving money, it shouldn't matter if they're placing employment. So I love the support of that.
Okay, we'll see if we can get a second on that one. That's on the top of page 9. Okay, doesn't look like we have a second on that one. You want to try again, Supervisor Willett? You have another one?
I do, but I gotta figure out where it is.
And you know, the agenda is a living, breathing document. There's things in here that were here way before I ever got here.
I guess on the point that I'm not getting a second on anything, I won't waste any more of the committee's time. I will probably bring some items back up by the time this gets to the board floor. I suspect I can at least get a second on the board floor so that we can vote on things.
Okay.
Free time.
All right. Vicki, do we need to vote on this to forward it?
You would, recommend approval as amended, I think is the,
Okay, that would get Supervisor Willett's, you got one in, you got a wording change.
the 911.
At the 911. Are we ready for that? I mean, we've had a fair amount of time here with Nikki, and we appreciate your thoroughness. So, Supervisor Pan, are you it's your, go ahead.
Well, just for future things, because I think, there are numerous points that various supervisors here could go into about criminal justice system, especially as it's, very much in the forefront of our conversations. In the future, should we just get in touch with you about maybe other ideas or recommendations we might consider?
Here's how it works. Once the agenda is adopted by the board, then that's it. It won't be open, again until the next session begins, which is in 2 years. But resolutions are adopted during the interim, and so a lot of positions get taken on issues through resolutions. Anything with a legislative intent, that a resolution with legislative intent usually gives direction to me on supporting or opposing or whatever the case may be. So if there's changes you want made, what happens is all those resolutions that are adopted during the period of time after this is adopted gets automatically enrolled in the new agenda that is developed when the next new session begins, which would be 2 years from now.
I meant more in, for instance, like if I, and I, frankly should have done this before we get into these meetings, or we just talk about this meeting, but for instance, if I had some thoughts about, if we want to take a position regarding the state's policies on, say, probation violations, but I don't feel comfortable enough on the issue to, let's say, make a formal recommendation now, would it be possible to just bring it up at a committee, or is it something
Yes.
you want to take up on?
The bill will continue its journey, the resolution will continue its journey. Its next step will be personnel and finance, and then executive committee, and then it goes to the floor. So if there's, you have those 2 committee opportunities. If you want to, I can work with you on wording if you'd like, if you need assistance that way, but those 2 committees still have to consider and take up the resolution, and then the final action is by the board on the floor.
What date is that exactly?
I don't know, because, for example, I never knew when I was coming here, so.
Well, I tried.
I know, but it's like, so, usually we're wrapping things up, so personnel and finance, also I have Ener tonight. So if Ener adopts it tonight, then the next step will be personnel and finance. If they don't, then I'll be still in Ener, so.
So I won't hold you up too long, since we haven't really committed, but I guess, the marijuana issue seems pretty, it doesn't seem particularly, it seems pretty black and white in the sense that, if we could word it exactly as we would the minimum wage referendum, it's referendum that the economy goes
sub, that has been enrolled.
So that is,
Yes, because they were all adopted by the voters. So any referendum that were adopted by the voters, that's in the sub.
Okay. Okay, Supervisor Baird.
I was just gonna respond to Supervisor Pan, if there's, you know, I'll take it upon myself to make sure this committee is aware of it when it comes to executive, and, you know, if there's changes we need to make in executive, because you think it'll be easier to make changes in committee instead of on the floor. I'll work with you on it.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion for adoption? Okay, it's moved by, as amended, yes. And it's moved by Supervisor Baird and seconded by Supervisor Krause that we adopt as amended. And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And no. We've done, oh, got that, okay. Mickey, thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Okay, we have some resolutions that I don't think will take too long before we get to the big topic of the evening. First, we have Resolution 448, authorizing acceptance of grant funds to administer funding for Dane, who's been in my office for a week, not on this resolution. They're in our office building fixing our nearly crashed entire computer system. They're very good. Yeah, it's moved by Supervisor Baird and seconded by Supervisor McCarville. The sheriff is here. Does anybody need to ask any questions on this one? This is an ongoing arrangement we've had with Dane for a number of years. I'm happy to have the sheriff answer any questions if there are any. Doesn't look like there are any, so any discussion at all on this one? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, looks like that one passed unanimously. Next one is 451, accepting exercise grant award for 2015 Madison exercises. This is in, looks like Chief Tubbs is here, Director Tubbs. We have a number of these. You want to say a little something about all of them, just to refresh everybody's memory, or, yeah, come on up. He's got Jay McClellan with him, and looks like we got.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. These grants before you tonight are grants that are going to produce exceptional training for our school districts to prepare themselves in the event of emergency type situation, whether it's armed intruders, tornadoes, what have you. And so these are very, very important grants that we need to move forward on. The reason I had Jay McClellan come up, Jay is my grant man in this particular area has done an outstanding job of getting grants for our school district, students in Wisconsin, emergency management for our schools right here in Dane County. Without saying any more, I'm going to let him say a few comments.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you can stand straight up. It's high tech.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, these are competitive grants that are, there's a pool awarded annually. We had a better record last year. We applied for 6, we got 5. This year we improved our record. We applied for 3 and got 3, which that's 3 out of 15 awarded statewide for exercising and training. What this does is basically provide the support local municipalities need and local first responders and school districts need to do the training, to bring in professionals to help guide them through a process. With this, we had Middleton Cross Plains Area School District, once again, is going through an exercise and training with their staff, working with first responders, fire, EMS, law enforcement, and the city of Middleton and Cross Plains with them. The Verona Area School District, once again, is participating with the Verona Police Department, Fitch Verona EMS, and Fitchburg Fire, Fitchburg PD as well. The city administration, they're embarking on a series of exercises. It took a little more finagling, but they've proven they've done it last year, they're gonna do it again this year, running through a cycle of exercises from discussion-based all the way up to moving fire trucks and personnel halfway across town to respond to a physical example of a threat and really make it happen. These exercises, there's no substitute for these types of exercises. To actually get the people together and focused on the issue. What these grants are providing is the money to help hire staff, to help walk them through professionals who do this on a regular basis, facilitate an exercise and ensure participants get out of it what they need. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jay? Okay, why don't we, you want to take all three of them together? Okay, Supervisor Willett. Okay, Supervisor Willett moves, Supervisor McCarville seconds. Any discussion on these three? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, those three pass. We have the next one, Resolution 476, authorizing to accept VAWA stop grant funds to continue the .5 FTE DD paralegal position in the Dane County District Attorney's Office. Marlis Howe, are you still here? I don't see her. Oh, where'd she go? Okay, well, all this is an extension of it. You know, it's in the budget. Okay, Supervisor Baird moves approval. Supervisor McCarville seconds. Any discussion on this one? There's Marlis. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, you just passed. Okay, you're very welcome. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We never quite know whether there's going to be questions or not. Okay, and the next one is back to the sheriff. This one is Resolution 490, authorizing a contract to provide three-way service team for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Seems to me we've had this one a zillion times. Supervisor McCarville? Okay, moved by Supervisor McCarville, seconded by Supervisor Willett. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, that passes. One more, back to emergency management. 493, authorization to approve purchase of services agreement for Type 3, formerly Level B, hazardous materials response. You brought Dave with you. Is he the expert on this one? Okay. Come on up. You're here. We've had this one before too, but tell us about this one.
Again, I just want to point out that this is another valuable dollars to the services. There's a hazmat situation in Dane County. Madison Fire Department will be our leaders. And I just want to get commend Big J and the BRSAC for taking leadership role in this one closely. And I really like to let my department members come up and speak so they have a chance to know them even better, know the work, how they work, what they do provide. Thank you.
Just to shed some light on what that type 3 and level B is, hazardous materials incidents used to be classified by the type of protective equipment that the responders needed. So there was level B equipment, which was one less than level A, but it was basically a splash protection where level A is fully encapsulated. Now they're classified more by the types of materials that they're responding to. So type 3 is industrial chemicals, type 2 would be unknowns, type 1 would be chemical weapons and that sort of thing. So that's what the distinctions are. Madison would be providing type 3 service within Dane County, so they'd be able to respond out to other jurisdictions within, outside of the city, but within the county to industrial
seconded by Supervisor Baird, that we approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, that one passes. All right, well, we're on to discussion, PP&J working group discussion regarding jail studies. People who want to testify, you've been filling out the blue slips, that's great. Marcia's been organizing them, and we're going to have a little discussion among PP&J first, and then I know Supervisor Krause has to go to the Fitchburg Common Council meeting, so she's going to have to slip out a little bit after 7. And unfortunately, Supervisor Schauer had a work commitment tonight that he couldn't get out of. But I think the rest of us are here for the duration. So if you just bear with us while we have our discussion, then when we're done with that, we'll move on to community comment. We did a pretty good job, I think, of attaching some of the drafts that we have to the agenda, so you can get an idea of where we're coming from. So let's open it up for discussion among committee members, and who wants to go first? Supervisor Baird.
Thank you. So Supervisor Penn and I sort of drafted up our notes and came up with, we're trying to do something a little different than usual, which is instead of simply introducing a resolution and having a public hearing and all of that, our goal was to sort of have a draft of our resolution here, you know, showing our notes a little bit, to have a discussion before it gets proposed, so that maybe some kinks can be worked out, and some ideas that perhaps weren't covered can be incorporated. So this is not meant to be exclusive. This is also not meant to exclude our colleagues on PP&J. I don't think that we covered perhaps every idea that we have heard. We tried to cover the ideas that the two of us thought were important. And so that's this sheet that starts off with investigate the following. And I forwarded to Supervisor Rusk, and he pointed out afterwards it would have been helpful if we wrote, this is a draft proposed by. So sorry that heading through the procedure didn't make it on there, but this is the origins of it from myself and Supervisor Pam. That being said, I'm more than happy to talk in detail about them. The idea behind this was to incorporate it with other proposals that have been written and drafted, i.e. this would be the start of the resolution. If approved, then we would investigate. So not understanding that we're never going to cover every detail, and that in theory, each of these points is going to have a 30-month subcommittee investigation. So obviously, we're not going to encompass all the things that is going to be discovered within a 3-month investigation, but it's hoping to give guidelines and philosophy of where we think the subcommittee would go. So we tried to give detailed knowledge, but obviously not all detail is possible. And yeah, I'll open it up to others. I'm more than happy to talk specifically through 1 through 8, but I don't necessarily know if that's requested or wanted by my colleagues. So I'll let them direct me as such.
Supervisor Krause.
I think I was just going to suggest, since we have many people in the room that are going to be really interested in this, why don't you just go through the 8 points really quickly to say what's in there for them.
I'm more than happy to. I can sort of read the first sentence of each item. And they're not necessarily ordered in grouping order. As we were talking with Madison Police Chief Koval today, we realized that mental health was in 3 different spots, not in a row, but there you go. Number 1 is mental health court, discussing the establishment of mental health court, be it 1 court or something incorporated within multiple courts. Number 2 is specifically talking about alternative placements for youthful offenders. It says under age 18, but of course under Wisconsin laws, under age 17. Alternative placement besides the juvenile court. Number 3 is eliminating the use of solitary confinement and determining what alternative space we need to create and study and establish so that solitary confinement is not utilized. Number 4 is grouping together alternative to incarceration programs. And, you know, a supervisor, he's used to me talking first because right? Even with an injury, I can't stop talking. But Supervisor Pan hopefully will address this. This was something that he did a lot of review of the many, many studies we have had over the last few decades. And a repeating pattern was to house all of our alternative to incarceration programs in one space. So that if you're in Program A, and Program A is not successful for you, maybe because it's too easy, maybe because it's too hard, maybe because it's not a right match for the demographics and your gender and your race and the challenges that you face, then you can turn to your colleague that does alternative to incarceration program 2 and say, I think this individual belongs with you. And that there can be an easier go-to instead of saying, you failed my alternative to incarceration program, there's the courthouse, see you there. So that was sort of the concept behind that. Number 5, this was part of the budget amendment, a stand-alone facility that serves individuals with mental health needs. One, mental health needs that have nothing to do with the criminal justice system, that to acknowledge that we need more services, but 2, one of the biggest comments that I got from police officers talking in the past few years was that they've come across an individual, they feel like that individual is not okay to be left where they are, but they wish they could take that individual someplace else besides the jail. And they feel that they have a moral obligation, correctly so, to remove this individual from their setting, but wish there was someplace they could take them that isn't jail. So that's the concept behind that. Number 6 is initiatives to decrease the average length of stay for those incarcerated in the jail. Prior sentence and conviction, the whole gamut of that, signature bonds, revolving bail fund, weekend arraignment court. Number 7 is specifically addressing the emergency dire issues that we have in the current jail. Oh, I'm sorry, I think that's number 8, forget it. Number 7 is a mental health crisis intervention team, similar, Supervisor Rusky and I were talking about this, similar to the crisis intervention team that we have established in our public schools, so that if a youth has a crisis during school hours, we have a team that responds to them. But when the youth has that crisis at 2 o'clock on a Sunday, we don't really have a team that responds to them. So trying to fill that gap. Number 8 is what I thought was number 7, the cost and requirements to address all safety and security concerns within the Dane County Jail. And then we sort of had these 2 catch-all sentences at the end. I'll read them. All the above investigations shall prioritize needs of community of color, especially African Americans, due to their disproportionate numbers in our criminal system. We felt that was really important, that we think there's a lot of good work that happens in Dane County by really well-intentioned and optimistic whites, myself included. And we need a perspective that is not mine. Then the second was echoing that. All outside RFPs or studies shall be awarded to entities that have an understanding of the impact of race discrimination as well as race plus poverty combined in Wisconsin and the United States. So that was sort of our attempt to be comprehensive. Woo! Thank you.
So I really appreciate the overview, and I think Supervisor Dane covered most of the points. I sort of wanted to just talk a little bit big picture about why we suggested these as recommendations to study, in addition to what we've already discussed, spending money to study is because, at least for me personally, and I felt that it was kind of incomplete to talk about what should we do with our jail if we didn't talk about sort of what are the issues with the jail in terms of population. So I felt that these are some key issues and key things we need to investigate about how the population of the jail is formed before we can decide exactly what to do with the new jail. Or if we do anything with the new jail, I should clarify that. So if we were to spend any new money on a jail, I would want answers to all my questions before to figure out if it is so necessary. Because for instance, I think the biggest statistic that I kept seeing in reviewing some of the studies that Supervisor Baird mentioned was that crime has been down for the past 10 to 20 years, and our jail population's increased.
Right,
It doesn't seem right to me, so it just doesn't seem like that makes particular sense. So a lot of the studies specifically discuss that the reason for that is length of stay. So that's why we discussed, for instance, the could sheriff deputies issue signature bonds so that while you're waiting for your essentially de facto signature bond, you're not in jail for those 2 days while you're waiting for a court case or things like that. So, so those were where some of those recommendations came from. Additionally, there's also a perspective, one that I sympathize with, which is that for a lot of these crimes committed, is jail really an effective measure to prevent crime from happening to begin with? Does it put people in a position where they wouldn't end up in jail? Is it possible that a way to tackle jail overpopulation is as simple as not locking somebody up to begin with?
Come on now.
So that's where that idea came from. And that's why we discussed alternatives to incarceration programs that people can be taken to. And so, for instance, I was actually, I don't know if that person's in the audience right now, but I was actually very moved by a moment where she talked about being sent to jail for stealing a $10 shirt, and nobody asked her once why she stole that shirt. And I thought that was pretty telling to me about how would jail have convinced her when she got out that she shouldn't steal a $10 shirt if does it tackle the problem of why she stole a $10 shirt to begin with. So for me, that's where a lot of these ideas came from. There are a whole other host of issues and things that repeatedly come up in the various studies that we've had, but these are the ones that are most relevant to develop possibly building a site, such as a site to house alternative facilities, such as a site to house a day reporting center where, for instance, people in work study programs or work programs can report to rather than having to check back in at night in jail. And so these are the ones I felt were most relevant to the $8 million we usually discussed that we could study with that money. There are other recommendations, but those probably fall under other areas. So, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Mike? Supervisor Willett? Oh.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would see if I could correct Supervisor Bannon when he's saying that the jail populations have gone up. I believe that to be wrong. The jail report on page 18 already talks about the statistics, and the sheriff is here so we could ask him. Actually shows the population in 2004 and 1,053 as an average daily population with a length of stay of 22.8 days. In 2012, that number was down to 759 with a length of stay of 19.9. Not only is that down 28%, it's also down almost 3 days on length of stay. So to say that jail population has gone up really does a disservice to our sheriff. So if we could correct that first, the sheriff's done a very nice job of continuing to bring the populations down, not going up. So from there, I would like to I appreciate this list, and it starts to put some things together which I'm really good with. There's a few things that concern me in ways that we could switch wording just a little bit. On number 8 is the most important to me. I think that we have some issues in the current jail on the back. And what they've always been referred to, you guys, and I'm sure this probably isn't a big deal to you, is they've always been called life and safety issues, and you've used the terms safety and security. So if you're all right with that, I think that's a really minor change. Okay. I thought that was amusing. Then next, I would go to item number 3, which is eliminating or greatly reducing this solitary confinement. This I would have trouble with in that way. I do agree with greatly reducing. We do use solitary confinement because other things aren't available at times. However, some solitary confinement is necessary. It is used for, sometimes for suicide watch. It is used for very violent prisoners. And the option, if we don't have solitary confinement, is what? Have the deputies sit on them? Solitary confinement cannot be eliminated. As much as we would like it to be, it's not possible, I don't believe, to have the word eliminated. So in my mind, I would be fine with greatly reducing. It's a little trivial change, but it kind of implies, we understand that this can't be done through the elimination method, and we greatly appreciate that. I don't know. How do you want to do it? I'm finding some response to it.
So once again, since this isn't a proposal, it's good to get everyone's feedback. I don't know if I agree with you, in the sense that the two examples that you used, and of course, they're just quick examples off the top of your head, I'm not gonna hold you to them. But for example, the two examples you used, one, an extremely violent individual. This is not my level of expertise, but to my understanding, solitary confinement exacerbates situations. So if an extremely violent individual is placed in solitary confinement, their mental health state, the way they act, the way they feel, will actually be worse. And maybe you can get him in there, or her in there, but one day you're going to have to take them out, and that is you're just making yourself a worse situation. That is my understanding. It may not fully be true, and that's what I like, the idea of having a work study group on this. And then your second example of a suicide watch. Again, solitary confinement, if you have mental health issues, which you do if you're on suicide watch, that is not a good space. That is not the place to be.
That's right.
And so, although again, I appreciate that these are examples off the top of your head, they're not an exclusive list, I think that there's merit to eliminating solitary confinement and still keeping our officers safe. And I think that a multiple time study needs to prioritize understanding that officers are in there and they work very hard, and we have to make sure that they are safe. And I'm trying not to do that. And that's why I said eliminating or greatly reducing. But I think eliminating makes sense sometimes.
It's an interesting point, and at this point, if we could ask the sheriff, since he's here, and she's right, she's not an expert, neither am I, but the sheriff is, if we could get the sheriff's input, is it possible to eliminate solitary confinement?
Sheriff.
I think that it's very honorable, and I think that we should move to diminish the use of solitary confinement in its current form to the best that we possibly can. As Supervisor Baird mentioned, there's a host of reasons that we are currently using solitary confinement or administrative confinement, from its basic method of use to change behavior because of behavioral outbursts to the most egregious and those that really border on inhumane behavior, and that's to house somebody with a medical condition or mental health condition, or in at least one case that I'm intimately aware of, an individual who was sentenced for an extended period of time who, because of a medical appliance, had to be housed in solitary confinement for months. And it's inappropriate, it's inhumane, and it shouldn't be occurring in Dane County.
Okay.
And there, you meant Supervisor Village, you mentioned Suicide Watch. There are much, much more humane medical special needs housing units that would be used for an individual who is under deputy watch because of suicidal tendencies, or the individual who's acting out. Most current efficient facilities today have cells, sometimes they're referred to as soft cells, for an individual who's violent to themselves. We don't have one in Dane County. So,
We're not doing well with that.
Well, you keep pushing me, okay,
Keep
let me
pushing.
do my thing, okay?
I appreciate all of that, and I think there's no one here that doesn't think that we should reduce the use of solitary confinement, and I think that we all also understand that the reason that that's used is because we don't have other choices. The question is it possible to not have any solitary confinement cells?
we will have to have some level of administrative confinement cell for an individual who, because of behavioral issues, needs to be segregated from the rest of the population. But there are far more humane and positive outcome style cells than what we currently have, which are true segregation solitary confinement cells, where an individual is segregated from sound and human contact. and that's what we use every day, for between 40 and 50 individuals because of medical and mental health conditions.
So is the answer yes, but other solitary confinement? I'm still
We
not quite
need
hearing
to
the answer.
create, we need to create other types of administrative housing cells that don't exist today, but we will always need some level of separation, confinement, not to the level that we have today with the cells that we have.
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Pan.
I also just wanted to quickly respond to Supervisor Willis' point. And Supervisor Willis is absolutely correct. The jail population did decrease in that year with the expansion of the electronic monitoring program, which was spearheaded by the sheriff. So I apologize for not giving you credit because you deserve it, Sheriff. That's 400 people that we got out of jail. So that's absolutely true. And general, roughly, aside from that drop off, I think is the issue of the general trends, aside from when the sheriff just spearheaded an expansion of the electronic monitoring program. The general trend has been, despite decreasing crime, length of stay, and jail populations increase year to year. For instance, it's higher now than it was the year that drop off happened. So that's I just want to clarify that. The other thing is that I appreciate Supervisor Willis' perspectives. I think that given the fact that we're talking about investigating, that if this money were to be spent, it'd be spent on figuring things out. First of all, I think it's critical that for instance, I really appreciate Supervisor Berg including the last two sentences because it is critical that whoever investigates whatever we end up doing has a outside perspective, has a better understanding of issues of racial disparities per se and mental health issues than we do. Clearly, we're the ones that are governing a system that is clearly not working for some people, not working for a lot of people, and so we probably can't be, probably aren't the people to be wordsmithing this to the finest detail. And so that being said, I think also whatever we decide to do regarding how we ensure public input is involved and community input is involved to practice into an actual resolution, I think is really critical, and I hope that process also includes people of differing perspectives, yourself included. Because I think it'll be, at the end of the day, I think part of what we have to do to tackle these issues is think really outside the box, and for me, part of that includes ceding a little bit of the authority and decision-making power that we, supervisors have, because we've clearly been working on a system that has just resulted in huge disparities. So I hope that just moving forward, I definitely want to keep those concerns you brought up in mind. But I think at this point we might as well shoot pie in the sky, because we might ask somebody who has more expertise on different ways that for instance jail behavior can be monitored, or that might have a proposal that makes sense that eliminates the need for solitary confinement, and we don't know that because we're in the system right now. Or it might come back and tell us, it's literally impossible. I want to have a definitive answer from experts that aren't necessarily people in our government right now, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I'm going to pick on Supervisor Krause. We haven't had any discussion on an area that you're real interested in, programming in the community and in the jail. So we saw a lot of this when we were in Iowa. So go ahead, Supervisor Krause.
So one of the things that I want to add to the end of the list that I think we need to put some time and money into is working within communities to take a look at what's happening in communities, particularly long-standing cultural, generations old at times, issues that are causing kids to end up in trouble, and see what we can do to help those communities. I would really love to put half the deputies in this town out of work, and what I'd really like to do is make them all social workers and send them out into the community. I think we have a lot of work to do in community, and if we can work with community and fix a lot of the things in community before, like Vicki was talking about the early childhood initiatives and things like that. If we can greatly expand a lot of those things, we can keep people out of trouble altogether. And I would love to do everything we can do to impact that. And I would encourage us to make use of our community experts to help us with that.
Okay, thank you. My turn, I guess. I don't wanna, okay. What I'm anxious for us to identify some substantial, possibly changes that could be implemented in the 2016 budget. And I'm gonna pick on Lynn Green a little bit, but she shared with me a statistic that really raised my eyebrows. Basically, over the last 10 years, the amount of money that we're spending on adult mental health, GPR, if I remember, was right around 8 million. It was the same number 10 years ago. And I think if you look at the Mead and Hunt report and you look at what's happening in our community, we have to figure out a way to address the mental health needs of people so that they don't end up in the jail. And so that's a big priority with me, as is the solitary confinement, as is this whole list, actually. This is extremely comprehensive, basically, and I don't think we can come up with solutions for everything in the next 6 months. We also have, and I've been trying to reach out so that we really can make change. The judges are all independently elected, as is the sheriff, as is the DA, and they all have independent powers and all of that. So what I'd like to suggest is perhaps Supervisor Baird and I should sit down and see if we can do some wordsmithing and bring in the courts, bring in the sheriff, bring in the DA, if we need to, bring in Lynn Green. I don't want to get ahead of us here, but I'm talking to Lynn, what are the best practices in many of these areas? What are the best practices from around the nation? Can we get some work groups together that can identify best practices and actually, I know this seems quick, but before we get to that 2016 budget, if we can come up with some specific things that we could put into the 2016 budget, we could write grants for, we could facilitate changes in practice and procedures of the problems, and we've got to reach out to the other folks that are elected. So if it's okay, we can do that under the open meeting laws. Marisol and I will start wordsmithing, and then we'll bring it back at least once more. And so that's kind of what I want to do, and I'll call on Supervisor Pan.
I appreciate a lot of stuff you brought up. I guess just to, I know this is very comprehensive, but for me it felt like, every person we can avoid, sending to jail or keeping in jail changes that may change, like what we can do with jail. For instance, in a hypothetical, I'm not saying this is possible, but for instance, in a hypothetical that we discovered that, through various criminal justice best practices, we could have less than 300 people in jail, well, that, actually eliminates the need to even have the citizens on the floor, for instance. So, I want a confirmation that that is a reason possible, So, as much as we all have our, initial leanings of whether we think it's possible or not. So, I guess the other thing too is that I know that Supervisor Baird and I actually have, or been meeting with some folks and talking with some ideas. For instance, we just met with Chief Cobalt today, so yes, absolutely we need to meet with other elected officials. They have their own powers to do, to set their own department's policies. That being said, I think a key point is that in terms of wordsmithing this from the condition it is now, I hope that community is not only a presence, but is a major presence in that process. So if you're talking about regular meetings, if you're talking about like one-on-one meetings, of course, Chris and I have already begun doing in some of these like one-on-one meetings where we sat down with this, but if we're talking about a real work group that can help finesse these specific points, I would hope that, you know, there are folks probably in the room right now that have a higher level of expertise than
The work groups that would include some people from the community, that's fine, but also some resources that we have in the county. We can look at some of these things and identify best practices and substantial improvements, and we don't spend any of the 8 million on that, but we make progress and we don't get in trouble with the bond council. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend 90 days arguing with the bond council of whether we can hire a consultant for this or that. I think we are, I'm talking to Lynn, I think we are going to need a programmatic mental health consultant probably, and Lynn's trying to help me figure out if we can hire somebody locally that can pull us together. We have county staff, we have a shortage of management people in county staff, so we have to be respectful of who we can pull together that can help us with all of this. I think they're there. This committee has some credibility with other branches of government, and I've been, Judge Koval's not here tonight, but I communicated with him over the weekend, and I got the judiciary wants to help, and I've been on this board for a really long time. I wouldn't have gotten that statement 10 years ago, so I think we're in a better place. Is he here? Oh, Koval, not Koval. Oh, Kolos, excuse me. Koval is the city. So anyway, so let's see. Oh, the whole board is up. I'm going to call on Maureen. She hasn't spoken yet. Supervisor McCarville.
Thank you, Chair Russ. I would just like to bring up again, as I have in previous meetings, the biggest concern that I have with regards to the jail situation is the safety of all who serve or are being housed in the jail, the responsibility that falls to us as the keepers of that and to the sheriff's area. We have bad situations in the jail. The technology is old and broken. We need to address that, and it costs money to fix it. We know that. If anything from a fire that we hope never happens, to somebody choking on a chicken bone in their cell, to having a heart attack, minutes of the essence. And if we can't get a door open because the technology is too old or too decrepit and we have to cut through a bar, it may just be too late. And I just hate to even think of something like that happening. In my mind, I believe that we need to address that first and keep people safe regardless of whether we believe they should be there or why they're there or who they are, whether it's the staff or the prisoners. But the safety issues in the jail, in my mind, are top priority. It's kind of like, if you can't breathe, don't worry about going on vacation next week, you know? So I think that where my mind is something that we need to address first. And I think we can kind of take a breath at that point and get into the meat or other issues. And it's going to take a long time for a lot of this stuff to work through, no doubt. But I don't think that we can leave the issue of the safety and fixing the problems that currently are in the jail regarding safety and the ability to get people in and out. They can't just open the door and go. We have to be able to do that. So I think we need to make decisions where we can move quickly to see that done and understand that it needs to be done for the safety of everybody in that jail.
All right, thank you. I'm going to call on Supervisor Krause because I know she's going to have to leave, but go ahead, Supervisor Krause.
And the first thing that I was going to say was, as you guys are talking about the list and talking about budget, don't be afraid to talk about budget amendments for the 2015 budget as well, for things that might seem more urgent than waiting for what might happen in 16. The second was, I was looking at the amendment to the agreement for the Mead and Hunt study, and section 2 in there says the provider shall work with local providers and service organizations with input from consumers, advocates, and the community to explore new and existing community treatment alternatives, and it goes on about that much further. We can strengthen that, I would think, to pull a lot more of the community into the $8 million that's existing for this study. And then we wouldn't be in as much trouble with bond people.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite,
The bond counsel, and for everybody here someone who might not know, that means outside attorneys that the county hires to determine whether our bonds are legally created. So we have to issue bonds to get the money to do anything in regard to capital. And that state law says, and federal tax law, that you cannot spend that money on anything but a capital improvement. Means stuff, building, furnishing sometimes, anything that isn't transitory. So in order to spend money out of this $8 million or any capital money that we appropriated, the bond council has to go to them and they have to approve it. So they have to tell us, it's legal for you to spend this money because this is a capital expense. And I don't have choice, and the county doesn't have a choice. If they say no, we don't get the money. And we hire them from an outside law firm, and they're specialized. That's the only kind of law these particular attorneys practice. So we could make these kinds of suggestions, but in general, stuff is stuff and programs are programs, and bond council sure knows the difference.
Well, in my mind, what we're talking about here goes directly to the question of what do we need to build in looking at a new jail system.
And if bond council agrees with that, then we're good. But they have to agree with it.
These guys are going to have to write that quite carefully then.
Well, it depends on where, they're gonna look at where the money actually literally goes. And if it goes for stuff or something related to stuff, and they'll look at the percentage of it that goes to deciding what to do in the jail. We can't decide with capital funds whether to build a jail. We can decide what, if we decide to spend the capital funds on the jail, we can look at what the structure of the jail should look like. So that's why Supervisor Pan, we had a long discussion on this, and that's why he and Supervisor Bear created these things, because they think it might be within that, the parameters of what that jail is going to structurally look like. We can't address anything programmatic.
So would we be able to talk about whether we should consider having a community-based facility for the pre-entry and post-release?
I think that's where the beauty of the work groups come in, because of course we can talk about that. We just can't hire somebody out there in La Land to give us a report on it. So,
With capital funds.
so
we can
we-
do all this, that's why they're creating
so we
these.
can work with Lynn Green and her folks. We can bring in some community experts that can, we can have a work group. I'm calling them a work group that actually can tackle some of this. And the county employees are already paid, and hopefully the community reps would not be, they're community people. They want to help us. You get somebody from the university maybe that's part of their public service or whatever. We're starting to get emails from people and PowerPoints from other communities and all of that. A couple of them came today, and I thought, oh, how nice. So I mean, the work groups can look at all that. I mean, there's I had the mental health court. I mean, there's interest from the judiciary on that. Can we pull that together? How many people would, all that? We can really, I think the time is right, and I think we can do a lot. We just can't do it where we just put out 5 or 6 RFPs. That isn't going to work because we can't use the money for the RFPs. But we are going to creatively get us some help, whatever. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping. Okay, let's see. I think Supervisor Willett and then Supervisor Pan. Supervisor Willett?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. The comments that my supervisor to my immediate right said are wonderful. The concerns, our first concern is PP&J needs to be to the life and safety issues of the people that are here. All of these are wonderful goals and they are great, but when we start talking about hopefully getting to them by the 2016 budget, that scares me about the life and safety.
Some of them. Oh, I think the health and safety would be identified by the 2000 budget, but we're not going to solve the mental health crisis in our community by 2016. But if we can agree on this is really priority 1, 2, and 3, get some of that in the 2016 budget, that's pretty good.
That's where my going.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. So I think all the other things are good, but I really think that by the time we put number 8, life and safety issues, in with them, I'm afraid of what that does to the timing of number 8. I think that life and safety needs to be more than that needs to be something that we should be getting to now. It bugs me that it's already taken as long as it has. We've been studying this for how long? And yet we're still here saying we should find out what the life and safety issues are. So I would say that the wording of this, I want to tweak it a little bit, but pretty close to what we have. I wanted to say life and safety, and I wanted to say in the CCB building, I think that should be done first. I think it should be done separate so that we get those answers. Those answers are going to come back to the committee, but it's going to get started on that because that is the most important. So certainly allow conversations to go on now. I'm very tempted to making a motion to just get the answers to number 8, but I will be quiet for a little while.
All right. Thank you, because I think that section is very important, and we have we do want to move forward on that, but I think we need to move forward on a couple of other things in there along with that. It's not only this committee, it has to go through the full county board process, and I think that if we can make some, we already know what the issues are, we just need a plan. We need long-term and short-term. We need some help on figuring out how to specifically fix those problems that have been identified. So anyway, okay, I promised Supervisor Pan next, didn't I?
And I apologize for taking so much time speaking because I hope we'll move quickly into what the community has to say on some of these issues soon. But I guess I just wanted to clarify a couple of points, which is that I think Supervisor Krause is correct in that a lot of the recommendations that came from Supervisor Baird and I the idea was we wanted to find things that were specifically potentially could be investigated under a capital budget, which is, for instance, building an alternative site. So, the conversation so far has a lot of times been, are we building a jail or not, which isn't totally, isn't the only things we're discussing, but, in my opinion, the conversation of can we build an alternative site that, say, could house these kind of services or could provide this kind of service or could be a place where people take them to instead of jail so they don't get a criminal record, things like that. As far as I can tell, that seems to be a capital cost and that the capital cost directly affects probably what our steps have to be regarding the jail. I think you're absolutely right, yeah, life and safety is.
And not to interrupt too much, but Human Services recommended that a number of years ago, and the cost was really high. But we need to take another look at that. I mean, that's part of the San Antonio, and you know, I mean that, you know, what San Antonio, they did a lot of nifty things. They had a ton of money. So let's, you know, what fits in Dane County, and I pull the talent together and work on it. You know, we're still going to have to deal with we're going to be getting that jail report anytime, and you know.
Right, we're violating federal law, frankly, so yeah, I get it. And I think you're right, the cost is really high, but the fact that, you know, we had a report that recommended to us spending up to $170 million building the jail, which I know that there are plenty of supervisors here, some of whom don't agree with me on all the points we just brought up, who think that that's, you know, too much money to spend on this sort of thing. So, for me, I think, you know, like, if that was at one point on the table, I don't see why not investigating building this facility and figuring out in today's terms what that would cost would be. And I think, you know, that, you know, and this would, again, have to be worded correctly, but, you know, part of investigating such a facility would, even in terms of capital costs, we would need to know what kind of services is this being done, especially, you know, organizations and services provided for Black communities and communities of color. Like that, even though that's programming, that we need to know what exists and what doesn't exist and what needs to exist just to determine what a facility would look like. So as far as I can tell, that seems like there would be a capital cost associated with that. As far as, you know, next steps, you know, what I'm hearing is that there are some things that some supervisors really want to do right now, and there are some other next steps that people feel like need more discussion and things like that, and, you know, and that people are willing to have community input. And I was sort of curious as to whether, and this maybe will change based on what the community says, but something to keep in mind is, you know, if we are going to, if you want to, if visible, they need to separate these conversations. We have like the very basic nuts and bolts of making sure what the facilities that we're running now is investigated, and then you put together people to investigate alternatives to incarceration and mental health issues and things that will affect our jail population. You know, we want to have a more lengthy process then. In that case, I would be glad to open that conversation up to more recommendations that don't just fit into what we thought could have been part of the special amendment. And if you wanted to create a work study to tackle that issue as a whole, then, you know, I think there's pages and pages of recommendations that you can add on to that.
And I think things in such a way that we really can make some progress. And we're not a university, but Mr. Sheriff, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what Supervisor Dane is talking about, we have begun exploring already. When I took office in 2007, we were preparing to build an EODA treatment facility to provide a treatment method to individuals who were incarcerated at that time. And that was put on hold to allow us to further explore electronic monitoring, which has been a highly successful program. We put over 3,000 people out in their homes on electronic bracelets, which has dramatically decreased jail population over the years and has now proven to be the most successful alternative incarceration program in the history of the Sheriff's Office. But I did want to touch on the fact that, you know, there is merit to look at a combined corrections, jail, and community non-custody treatment option. If you recall, we tried to open up the second floor of the Fair Center as a homeless shelter in conjunction with the incarcerated individuals on the first floor. DLC ruled that we couldn't do that because there was no permanent barrier that secluded them from correction facility individuals to community members. And so I think there's some merit to exploring that and then maybe reaching out to DOC to make sure that that's something that could be created where we could have both a community-based treatment program for non-custody but also in-custody individuals as part of the jail. And we've got part of that done with that EODA treatment study that was done in 2007.
Yeah, it was wonderful that we did the electronic monitoring, and that saved millions and millions and millions of dollars. But I can hardly forgive myself that I didn't push harder to also do the AODA then, because it would have been incredibly cheaper, and a whole bunch of people would have been, don't cry over water over the dam, but it's like, why didn't we do it then? But we did, so. Okay, so we're back to Supervisor Baird.
Very briefly, I want to make 2 quick points. One is, this is a draft for a reason. If there are things that we need to pull out, then we need to pull them out. I appreciate Supervisor McCarville and Supervisor Willett. If number 8, maybe number 8 doesn't really belong here. We don't need to sit and investigate. I agree, if we have a fire concern, then we have a fire concern. Maybe that needs to be a separate resolution and we address it. The second piece is if there are things here that aren't capital, or Supervisor Krause's statement about looking at community involvement and that's not capital, then let's write another proposal. I don't want us to be bound by fitting into the hole. If we don't fit into the piece that we have, then let's make more pieces. And I want to let people know that I think that makes sense. And the final statement, just to be clear, is I'm not interested in wordsmithing and playing a vocabulary game so that I qualify for capital. I either qualify for capital or I don't. I don't want any of our efforts to be a game. I don't want any of our efforts to be wordsmithing tricks, and if we don't say it the right way, it means something else. Let's do this right.
Okay, any final comments before we hear from the community? Okay, by the way, before we hear from the community, I think it's unprecedented that we're putting drafts out there. I think this is the first time, in at least that I know of, I guess sometimes drafts are handed around and stuff, but we've actually been posting for a while, so anyway. So let's, Marcia's got us all organized, right? Under the rules of the county board, you each have 3 minutes. And we've got a little bit of a timer. And I know when you hear something that you really agree with, it's fun to clap and, get excited about it. Technically, that's not allowed under the county board rules, so I know it's hard, but if you could try and just listen real carefully to all the speakers, and we're not going anywhere. I don't know about the other supervisors, I think most of us can stay. And so are we ready for the first one? And you can use either mic. I figured out how to turn you on now with either mic. Sorry about that. And we also, if you put on here, and it's 7 o'clock already, but if you put on here that you had childcare issues or something like that, nobody did. Okay, we wanted to move you up to the top. But first person is David Blaska, to be followed by Catherine, 123 West Washington Avenue, Mulligan, MU, Mulligan, maybe. So, David Blaska, oh, let me turn you on, David.
All power to the people!
All power to the people!
And my time starts now. Hopefully I get it. Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairman Rusk. As some of you may know, I did serve on this county board for 12 years. And when I first came on this county board in 1994, they were just dedicating the then new public safety building. And believe it or not, conservatives had a majority when they authorized that public safety building, and also when I was elected in 1994. The problem was it was built too small. We did not have a veto-proof majority. We had a majority, so it was compromised, and we wanted to add on 2 floors that could have been roughed in with the HVAC in there, and then you could build it in as the county grew. Unfortunately, and I think Supervisor or Chairman Rusk referred to this, we had then, and apparently had it for many years, a kind of a short-term attitude toward things. I have to say this, that the police in Dane County and in the city of Madison are not the problem. They're the solution. They are, and I served for 6 years on the Public Works Committee. We spent good money after bad trying to reform and rehabilitate the top 2 stories of this building here. which was, I think, old technology when it was built in 1955. I served on Health and Human Needs. We have, I think, still well over half of the budget goes for Health and Human Needs. When a police officer goes to a place of trouble, whether it's a crime scene or a neglect scene or whatever, that person, that family, those victims get plugged into a very good system. Never has enough money, I understand that. Let me also say that unless Sheriff Mahoney wants to correct me, nobody's in the Dane County Jail for stealing a $10 coat. That's just not happening. That is not the case. I have to say too that I've heard a lot here tonight about worrying about the inmates, which is fine. I understand that. In fact, I think Sheriff Mahoney is very progressive in the best possible way with a small p, in that you have a captive population, obviously. You can give them services, you can give them help that they may not have accessed, whether it's aorta issues or whatnot. That's some place where you can do something. What I haven't heard, though, is protecting the community. Someone here said crime is down. They can't figure out why crime is down and the inmate population is up. I suggest cause and effect. I think the bad people are taken off from the community and put in jail. That helps the good people of that community to coalesce, to go to school, to study, to go to work, to not be afraid in their own homes, to save for a better future. We owe a debt to the people of Dane County who are trying to play by the rules. The problem with folks in the jail is not poverty, and I resent this black versus white business that's being foisted. We cannot have two separate but unequal justice systems. The problem is not race, the problem is poverty, the problem is behavior. That is the problem. And so I'd say to you that, all right, well, thank you very much. I
Okay,
appreciate that.
all right, thank you. Next is Catherine Mulligan. Oh, you're absolutely correct.
I got one already.
Okay.
She did it.
Okay, wait a minute, this one too. Registering in opposition, registering, did you give me the wrong file?
No.
Registering in opposition. All right, here's the
Look for
speaker.
the last one.
M. Adams, ADAMS.
Yes!
Get it.
All power to the people!
All power to the people.
Quickly, we are continuing to push for our demands. We are against all monies that go to building a new jail as well as putting money in jails to build new parts of jails, which we also consider to be new jails.
Yes.
We also demand an end to solitary confinement, and we also demand the immediate release of 350 black people who are incarcerated due to crimes of poverty and structural racism here in Dane County. Quickly to say, there are people incarcerated in the jails due to crimes of poverty. There are people incarcerated who cannot afford to pay simple bills. And they are only in there because they can afford a bill of $200, $300, or money similar to that. Secondly, I'd also like to say policing has a lot to do with that. People don't walk themselves into jail. Police go and get those people and take those people to the jail. People don't just wake up and say, I'm going to walk into jail. No, people are picked up by the police. So the police have a direct responsibility in people being in jail. And I am disappointed in the leadership of the police that would say we don't have a role, because my understanding of leadership means that you are responsible for yourself and the entity in which you lead, which means that the leadership of the police should be saying, yeah, we did do that. Let's do something different. Also, quickly on the subject of the jail, we wanted in writing that the sheriff is not going to build a new jail. I'm not going to just take people saying we don't have the money now, so we're not going to build a new jail. We want it in writing, we want it in a moratorium, and we also understand that if all of the reconstruction goes in for the jail, that when that jail is completely reconstructed, that would end up costing more to build it, more money for reconstructions than the building of the new jail.
Page 28.
Also, on the subject of capital money, there are tons of infrastructure that needs to be built in the black community, which this money could fund. Owl Creek, for an example, is a neighborhood, is a community of predominantly... predominantly low-income families that does not even have a community center. There's $8 million here for capital funding. There's a poor community, a black community without a community center. Go and build a community center.
Yes.
I've heard time in and time again that there was no money. Clearly there is money. We will not be fooled by these stories that say there's no money, that there's no resource. We are here demanding that people do what is right, that people do what is just. Lastly, there is no shortage of well-intended white people. This is not a conversation of what you meant to do or how you like black people or how many black friends you have, to be clear. This is not a conversation of do you like me or not. I am not here to discuss that. I am here to discuss impact, period. 8-to-1 arrest records, period. 5.9% black county, 49% black jail. We are here to deal with impacts and impacts alone.
Yes.
We support the majority of the resolution in the draft put forward by Leland and Carousel, but we once again are against the money being invested in jails.
Yeah! Yeah!
You even left them with 10 seconds.
Not the jail!
Build the people, not the jails.
Build the people!
Okay, sorry, you by yourself.
All right, next we have Randy Grayson, North Avenue, to be followed by Sandy Wellander on Fisher Street. So Randy.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
The Young Gifted and Black Coalition oppose any money for jail or rebuilding of the jail. We demand a people's injunction on the proposed $8 million for remodeling or building a new jail, and that money to be reallocated to black-led resources.
Yes.
We demand the release of 350 black people incarcerated due to crimes of poverty that we like to pretend that doesn't exist. We demand the end of solitary confinement. It is inhumane. If you need to house someone with mental health issues, find them a place that's not in solitary confinement.
Let's go!
I just want to say that the truth is that by adding floors to the building, the public safety building, you are adding 186 beds. The truth is, by doing so, it will cost the taxpayers of Dane County $160 million based on the report that you provided us. The truth is, you will not be doing anything to address the racial disparities that currently plague our system. The truth is, you only waste time and money by continuing to invest in institutions and systems that do not benefit our community.
Yes.
We are here because we are black. We are here because we live in these communities that you tend to continue to speak for and enforce policies and procedures and allocate funds that have nothing to do with our needs. We're tired of you specifically telling us what we need. We do not need more policing. We do not trust you in our neighborhoods. We do not trust you because we have hundreds of years of a history of you murdering and harassing us. When you police our communities, you are basically looking for probable cause to harass us. White people do not deal with that in their communities.
Yes.
You can sit on the corner and smoke crack and nobody knows and nobody cares, which leads to the high racial disparities in our jails.
Yes.
There is a problem. Black people in Madison is arrested at a rate of 6-to-1. 45% of the people in jail are in jail for bonds and bail lower than $1,000. If they had money, they will be gone. So therefore, this is not a public safety issue or issue relating to the safety of our communities. We are tired of you telling us what we need. We are tired of you getting on the media and mainstream media reframing our agenda and making us look angry. You damn right we're angry.
Yeah.
We're damn right we're angry. We are justified in our anger. I'm sick of being harassed by police. I'm sick of being assumed that I'm a criminal and I am lazy and I don't have the intellect or ability to the self-determination for me and my people and create the environments that we deserve and that we desire. Your presence in our neighborhood is an issue. We do not need white men on horses patrolling us. We do not need people arresting us because we decide to hang out because that's what we do culturally. We do not need you telling us that we cannot hang in our parks, that we cannot sit on our porches, that we cannot do the things that you as white people get to do. And if you're not aware, this is definitely a race issue. Check the statistics, baby. It doesn't happen by itself. We are the worst in the nation. We are the worst across the state. And it's because of people like you sitting on these boards that have no clue about what it means to be black in America. And we will not stand for you making decisions for us anymore. We will not stand for you mocking us and whispering and making these comments behind our backs. We are here and we ain't going nowhere until you answer and respond to our demands in a way that incorporates our vision for ourselves and our community. All power to the people. All power to the people.
Black Coalition has brought forward.
Woo!
Yeah. Woo. And I specifically just wanted to say that we really need to put the money towards Black-led community initiatives. We have a problem in Madison where Black people don't have access to government, access to power, or access to money to, initiate problems and solutions. And we've got a talented group of people and energy associated with this movement, and take the money out of the jails, send it to the people. We can come up with some good solutions.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, and then after Brian is Lisa West.
My name is Brian Kennedy. I'm from Madison. I grew up here. Went to school here. Own company here. Work for the county. Actually work around the corner. What I see, I speak with a lot of these kids in the community, and what I see is that they're already afraid that they're going to go to jail. And it's not that they're 16, 15, 14 worried about they're going to go to jail. They know this when they're in third grade. They say, you know what, I gave up on school in third grade. And the reason why is because we got technology to entertain every other kid, but we don't got technology to educate kids. My company has put in proposals to do educational resources around the town, except for we get turned down at every chance we take, every corner we take, we're turned down, there's no funding. However, there's $8 million to put into a jail that could actually be put out to prevent these kids from getting to that point of going to jail. Now, I don't believe that it starts with, it's the police fault. I believe it's the education fault. If you don't educate these kids to have a future and have a way in the future, you're always going to be dealing with the same issue. 10, 15, 20 years from now, you have the exact same issue. You have people who are uneducated and breeding uneducated kids and putting them in the system to go to jail, who breed more kids to put them in the system to go to jail. So that's all I have to say. I just want to get up here and speak on how I feel about the situation. Thank you.
Woo! Lisa West to be followed by Elizabeth Betsy Day.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay, Lisa's gonna pass, okay. Betsy Day,
Betsy had to leave.
she had to leave, okay. Okay, yeah. But she didn't speak, make sure. Yeah, because we'll get confused with the minutes. Marco, 2122 East Dayton, Budish? Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I stand in solidarity with the demands that you've heard so far. So we are calling for people's injunction of the proposed $8 million to further renovations or building of new county jail. We recognize that an injunction is normally defined as a court-mandated order that requires the party to refrain from specific action. However, not court ordered, we call on the PP&J to put a hold on the $8 million while the plan is to put together to spend it for building people and not the jail. To be allocated to Black community-led programs and find ways to keep people out of jail first. We continue to push for our demands. We demand for an injunction of the proposed $8 million for remodeling or building a new jail, and for that money to be relocated to Black community-led resources. We demand the release of 350 Black people incarcerated due to crimes of poverty from the Dane County Jail, and then we demand the end of solitary confinement. Build the people, not the jail.
That's right.
One thing to add, the supervisors here and the voices from the community have asked for experts and counsel on the matter at hand. You have a full room of experts.
Come on now,
and
speak on
counsel.
it.
Let's go. Just open your ears, it doesn't cost nothing.
Next is Teddy, S-H-I-B-A-B-A-N. Okay. Last time. Followed by Elizabeth Bruno.
So I want to start by saying that while I appreciate some of the forward comments and steps being made by some of the supervisors, that baby steps are not enough.
Come on now, let's go.
Okay, the problem is very deep. I mean, somebody quoted at the rally earlier what Michelle Alexander said, which is that more black people are under the clutches of the criminal injustice system than were in chattel slavery in 1850.
Come on.
Let that sink in.
That's a fact.
And this county leads the pack in its per capita contributions to that statistical representation of oppression. This body, by purpose or neglect, is responsible for at least a significant part of that destructive reality.
That's right.
You have an opportunity now to disprove the growing notion that you sit on a body whose claim to democracy is counterfeit.
Come on now.
There have been repeated mobilizations asking you to stop the jail study and instead redirect the $8 million towards community-led programs that build the people and not the jail.
Yes!
The amazing work done by the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition has forced some statements indicating a change of heart made. We need this body to injunct itself against any present or future measures to expand rather than contract the warehousing of black people for crimes of poverty.
Yes.
We need this in writing because we are too used to politicians sweet-talking us about climate change. Okay, no matter what their color. I have yet to hear about similar repeated demonstrations in defense of this jail study. So is this democracy or is it a charade? And if my comments are too sharp for you in my defense, I was here in June as part of the 15 Now Coalition demanding that you amend the advisory referendum for the minimum wage to call for a living wage of $15 an hour instead of the measly $10.10.
That's right.
Which, by the way, is also a key issue of racial justice.
That's right.
Because black and brown workers are concentrated in low-wage work.
Let's go.
Okay. At that meeting, a crushing majority of speakers supported 15, and you guys went ahead with 10.10. Okay. And so I wonder if the corporate overlords that rule this county and this city have the same amount of trouble being heard for their demands. So are you a democratic body or are you not? If you are, you should stand with the people and say, build the people, not the jail.
Yes!
And I want to ask, so reference was made to this bond council of some lawyers, outside law firm. What law firm exactly is this? Who are their clients? And what are their interests? The law all too often is not the law as such, and is interpreted to serve corporate and financial interests above those of democracy and human rights.
Time's up.
Elizabeth Bruno to be followed by Eric Upchurch. Elizabeth? Okay. Eric Upchurch to be followed by Joan Beagle.
All power to the people.
All power to the people. You're Eric, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm good. Go ahead.
So really quickly, as part of the Young Gifted and Black Coalition, we are against all monies to renovating or adding to a jail study, or a new jail. We demand that $8 million be put towards black community-led initiatives, that 350 black people be released, those who are incarcerated due to crimes of poverty, and an immediate end to solitary confinement. There are some mutual concerns here, and I would like to believe that people here want what's best for our community. Where we differ is how we enact those results. And I think that if you're wanting to affect a community, you need to listen to that community, and you're hearing from them tonight. We feel like we want to address crimes in our communities. There is an unsafe overflow area in the jails. We recognize that. We have a solution. Don't put people there. Don't put people in those unsafe areas. If you were at capacity, would you put people in random corners and just seal it off and hope that it suffices? No, you wouldn't. Don't put people there. And if that means no arrests, don't arrest people. We also mutually want an end to solitary confinement. Solitary confinement exacerbates the issues of mental wellness. This is not pillow talk, people. This is from the National Alliance on mental illness. So this is not something, so to say that you have to put somebody in solitary confinement is to say that you have to exacerbate their issues. And then if you're arresting people because of their, or related to their mental illness, you are in fact contributing to the high arrest rate of those people incarcerated due to crimes of poverty and also to their mental illness. So you're, in short, you're creating a problem and then asking for funding to pay for a solution that you are also creating. That seems counterproductive to me.
1 minute.
Thank you. Jail does not solve our root causes. We want to focus on alternatives and focus on addressing these racial disparities. If you really want to address racial disparities, then let's focus on those. The group that you paid, Mead and Hunt, to give you these statistics, they also said that that in their master plan predicts that space needs would increase by 186 beds in the coming years, pending no policy change. So this plan that people that you're paying to get your information from are telling you that your plan is not working. So what that means is that we need another plan, and the community has that plan. Listen to the community. What we need to ask ourselves is the jail and criminal justice system a place for human services? It is not. Obviously, it is contributing to our issues per Mead and Hunt, the people that our officials have paid. So what we want is to focus on the root causes. There's talk about the capital budget not being able to be used for community initiatives. We've heard that that's a lie. You can fund studies, and those studies can go to all sorts of community programs. It needs to go to Black-led community initiatives because we are the ones most impacted. Listen to us, because obviously, listening to yourselves, coming from well-meaning and ignorant perspective, it's not working. So let's learn from our mistakes and move forward.
Okay, I didn't get your last name right. And after Joan is Andrew Glitner.
Chairman Russ, supervisors, and fellow citizens. I am Joan Legal, and I am a member of Dane County and of Moses. I have no official capacity with either group, but I am here tonight, and I'm going to start with a story. The story begins in 1841. The main character is Dorothea Dix. Dorothea is a school teacher who's decided to teach Sunday school at a jail in Massachusetts. When she arrives, what she sees changes her life, and eventually she will change the lives of many other people because of it. She sees women who are clad in dirty rags and housed in a cold room. One woman is in a cage. Dorothea goes to court with her case, and she wins warmth for those women. She begins a campaign to inspect jails throughout the eastern part of our United States, and eventually convinces legislators to build asylums for people who have serious mental illness. In her lifetime, she's responsible for building 32 asylums. Now the next chapter, or the next chapters actually, of the story, we know well. In the 70s and maybe perhaps early in the 60s, we decided that asylums weren't the answer. Psychotropic drugs had been discovered, the early ones. It was possible to move some people from the asylums into the community. The plan was to have the money follow those who moved into the community. However, the funds never fully arrived. Then, homelessness of the mentally ill began to increase. And that system brings us to where we are today. We've gone full circle. We're back, and instead of cages like Dorothea saw, we have solitary confinement.
Same thing.
So,
So let us write another chapter. Let us write a chapter and let us have the theme be, mental illness is not a crime. Jails are not therapeutic environments. No new jail.
Say that.
Instead, let us look at national trends. I mention again, oh, all right, time's up?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think you have a message, and let's move forward.
And not back.
All right.
To be followed by Colleen Donahue or Donahue? Andrew here? No Andrew. Colleen on 2105 Kendall Avenue.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. For every dollar spent on treatment alternatives and diversions, saves $1.96 to the taxpayers. There's been a lot of studies already identifying best practices, and Dane County is not using them. And without utilizing those and figuring out what our prison population truly needs to be, we don't know how big the prison has to be. So it doesn't make sense to build a prison first. I have to say that I'm quite ignorant about a lot of these issues. I adopted 3 African American kids who I love passionately. And hearing what's happening in Dane County being the worst place for Black people breaks my heart. I either have to move to Sweden or become active and try to make the world a better place for them, because they deserve it. They're amazing. Thank you.
Elizabeth Severson to be followed by Nino Rodriguez. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thanks. I'm here in support of the Young, Gifted, and Black movement. As I read their list of demands a couple weeks ago, I got so excited, and the chance to come here and say something to this committee was just very exciting for me. I think that Dane County has a chance to do something so exciting, so new, so progressive, by not investing dollars in a jail or a jail addition, but to go to the people who can identify the issues and come up with some marvelous ideas, all different ideas, on how to solve some of the problems. With $8 million, I know it's not a ton of money, but what if some great programs come out of this, and then more money is generated for the African American community in Dane County, and then it spreads. And if it means that there are fewer young Black men in jail, it will be absolutely wonderful. I work with a very small group of people, and we send books to prisoners in the state of Wisconsin. We get letters from the prisoners. They say, send me this kind of book. The letters primarily come, we get an enormous number of letters from African American males, obviously, because they make up the majority of our prisons. Their stories are heartbreaking and heartwarming, and can you send me a book on algebra? Can you send me a book on taking my GED? The idea of helping, giving of that money, going to a group of people who will say, how about this program? How about that program? Here's what we can do. We can have a baby, a parent school or a parent college like they did in Brook. I mean, people are going to come up with some marvelous ideas, and I can't wait to see what the African American community in Dane County comes up with. Thank you.
Yeah.
advocating against spending any of this money on new jail or new jail facilities. So I wanted to just maybe reflect a little bit on, we're coming up on Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and thinking about what does the situation look like? How is it different since the time that Dr. King was organizing?
Come on.
So you don't see the signs right above places that say white only. You don't see signs on the drinking fountain or above the door. And in fact, when you came in here tonight, you saw a nice big Martin Luther King on the door as you came in. But I think what we've heard from people is that the signs still exist. Those white only signs still exist. They're just they're concealed. They're hiding. They're written into policies. They're part of practices that lead to the problems that we've seen with over-incarceration, particularly of black folks and people of color. And part of what I want to do is just encourage you to look for those signs, figure out where they are, where are they hiding in the policy. And I'm here to help you a little tonight. I brought some signs with me. So, for example, one sign, we've been talking about trying to get people out who can't afford to pay the bail or who cannot pay the bail that are very low amounts. Well, how do people end up in a situation where they're getting bail instead of getting released on their recognizance, instead of getting a signature bond? Well, here's a sign that says, from the Wisconsin courts on how it is that people get bail or not. And one of those signs is that you have to have a proper identification. Okay, so one thing we know about people who are struggling with low incomes, is that it's difficult to maintain identification. We've certainly saw a big discussion about that in terms of changes to voter registration and that sort of thing. People are marching in the streets because they don't have identification or the means to identify. That's poverty. That's one reason that people don't get bail. That's one reason that they sit in the jail right here above our heads and down the street. So that's a sign. Another sign, when the county tried to implement an alternative to bail program, here's a sign from the state attorney general at the time saying that counties were not allowed to run these sorts of programs. The sign that I would like to see, and the reason for that is because there's no law saying that a county can run that kind of program. I would like to see a new sign, a new law, an ordinance saying counties can run bail alternative programs. I'll leave my remarks there. Thank you.
All power to the people! All power to the people!
Corey Larson to be followed by my former neighbor, Ted Goat Jr. Go Corey, go Corey.
Hi. My name is Corey. I'm a unionist and a socialist. And I'm in solidarity with the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition. We demand an injunction, people's injunction to propose $8 million for remodeling or building a new jail, and for that money to be reallocated to black community-led resources. We demand the release of 350 black people incarcerated due to crimes of poverty from the Dane County Jail. We demand the end of solitary confinement. We demand the release of 350 black people incarcerated for crimes of poverty. These are crimes like homelessness, like drugs, like theft. In Dane County, 54% of blacks are in poverty.
Let's go.
75% of black children are in poverty.
Same.
Black unemployment is 25%. So we must also demand an end to poverty.
Yes.
In the richest country in the world, in the richest city in this state, poverty itself is the crime.
Let's go.
There are more empty houses in this country than homeless people. So how can you end homelessness in this county? Put them in the houses.
Come on now.
Voters voted to legalize marijuana in this county. Although it was a non-binding referendum, the police should stop harassing, ticketing, and arresting people for drug use.
Right on.
And if you want to end theft, give people living wage jobs.
Yes.
It should be a crime to pay a wage that people can't live on.
Yes.
To combat poverty, we should spend the $140 million or $170 million or whatever this new jail costs on green jobs, retrofitting old inefficient houses, creating mass transit that can actually get people to work on time,
yes.
Building wind and solar power, and stop the criminal rate charges and changes by MJD. There's always money for hotels, for condominiums, for State Street developments, for tax breaks for greedy corporations who pay poverty wages. There's always money for the police and sheriff's department, for military vehicles.
1 minute.
And if the money, hold on, I already said that. While we're working on these solutions, taking the money from the people who don't need it and giving it to black communities to lift themselves up, police need to stop harassing, ticketing, and harassing poor people and people of color. In New York City, police protest and slow down against anti-racism and for the right to brutalize and murder blacks in the street. For 2 weeks, reduced arrests 60%, reduced summonses 90%, and saw no increase in crime. The NYPD claimed it was only doing its necessary work. The police in Dane County, in the state of Wisconsin, should only do the necessary.
That's right. Let's go.
And we should immediately release all prisoners for crimes of poverty. Build the people, not the jail. Thank you.
Build the people, not the jail. Build the people, not the jail. Build the people, not the jail.
Ted? I don't see Ted. So we'll go on to Matthew Carney, to be followed by Carl Sack. Matthew?
Build the people, not the jail.
Yes.
To believe that use of scarce public resources to build a new jail is the less wise investment rather than the more wise investment is not necessarily an anti-police position or an anti-law enforcement position. There's lots of reasons that I can't explain in 3 minutes why. It's in the long-term interest of law enforcement to decrease reliance on the incarceration model. Not to mention, in the long-term interest of the communities that are policed, to decrease reliance on the incarceration model. It's going to be better, ultimately. Why are we tying so much? Why are we talking about racial disparities and mass incarceration in relation to this particular decision to build a new jail? It's because once we spend a substantial amount of money, 8 million, 140-something million, whatever amount it is, to build a new jail, there will be a strong impulse to use it. It will help to keep us into the incarceration model of dealing with community problems, of dealing with small crimes, of dealing with, in many cases, non-crimes, process violations,
That's right.
Failure to show up for a court date and you get locked in jail, failure to pay a bond in a timely manner and you get locked in jail, failure to, you're on probation and you stay out past curfew and you get locked in jail. And the list goes on and on and on. The county, Dane County, as we all know, I think, has one of the highest rates of racial disparity in incarceration in the entire world.
Yes.
And there are solutions. They can't be covered in 3 minutes, but there are solutions. We can, at the very least, although we're probably not going to solve that problem tonight. We're definitely not going to solve the deep cultural association of blacks with criminality tonight.
Yeah.
Say that. Ultimately, we must solve it, but we can, at the very least, not make the situation, the local situation, we can, at the very least, not make the local situation worse by building a new jail.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Let's go.
Carl Sack, to be followed by Karma Chavez.
I'm here to stand in solidarity with the Young Gifted Black Coalition and the incredible energy that they have brought to this issue of racial disparities in Dane County. We had a report, and it's easy enough for reports to come out and then just be ignored, and they're making sure it's not getting ignored, and they deserve all of our thanks for that. Everyone's in the community. I want to say, I want to acknowledge the draft that was brought by the supervisors, Penn and Baird, and say that there appear to be some good ideas in there, but I think I want to ask, does it meet the demands?
Right.
I want to ask, where in there the $8 million is being sent to communities of color organizations to determine what to do with that money for themselves?
Yes.
And I think that, yes, we need to look, getting rid of solitary confinement, great. Get rid of solitary confinement. That is inhuman. No one should ever have to be subject to solitary confinement. But we need consultation of the communities that are experiencing this day to day. When we say we need this plan, whatever plan we come up with should be, should hire somebody to look at it who has some outlook on racial justice. You don't need to hire anybody. Go to the south side, go to Owl Creek, hold community meetings, get people there, and make you a plan, and then do it.
That's right.
And about this bonding committee or whatever it is, what you need needs to pass muster with a capital for a capital bond. There's no more important capital in this city than the human capital.
Come on now.
There's no more important capital than human capital, or whatever you want to call it. I hate the term capital, but let's use it for this, because those are the communities that have to deal with the outcome. And that's who should be directing this plan.
Right on.
Are you the elected officials, or are some lawyers who decide whether to dole out bonds or not? Build the people, not jails.
That's right.
Marma Chavez. Okay. Catherine Garay. Catherine Garay. Erica Bach. B-A-C-H? Okay, great. And then after Erica will be Danielle Bailey.
Thank you, Board of Public Protection and Judiciary. I am honored to be here tonight with Madison, organizing in strength, equality, and solidarity. We stand in solidarity with the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition, as well as several other community organizations who are here tonight to once again say to you, no new jail, and no old jail either. We, the citizens of Dane County and members of Moses, demand urgent fixes to all levels of Dane County's criminal justice system. Dane County has some, as you know, of the nation's worst incarceration rates of African Americans, intolerable use of solitary confinement, including of people with mental illness, and a great deal of unnecessary incarceration caused by outdated policies and practices. We thank Supervisors Baird and Pan for the changes and reforms suggested to the criminal justice system. While they are still attached to $8 million for jail renovations, we cannot fully advance that agenda.
That's right.
Sheriff, with all due respect, if we can't have your department fix an antiquated door for the safety of the people inside, why would we trust you with $8 million? We have no reason to believe that you have our community's safety in mind.
Talk that talk.
The jail is an antiquated building and the system is a broken one. We need to look at options, including treatments, alternatives, and diversions. You heard earlier that $1 spent equals $1.96 in change. It also equals the support of community members. It means lifting up the voices of those who are locked within. TAD, over the course of the last 2 years, has saved a total of 141,215 jail days.
Come on now.
We need to continue to invest in these types of options. Counties save money when jail use is decreased, and participants have a lower recidivism rate than people who are sent to jail or prison for the same offenses. A pretty painted solitary cell is still a solitary cell.
Come on.
Since we agree that it is inhumane, let's refrain from treating humans, that is our neighbors, our families, and our communities, in any way that is less than human.
Let's go.
Thank you. No new jail, no old jail either.
That's right. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Danielle Bailey, to be followed by
Danielle Bailey. I'm employed by the YWCA of Medicine and also by Domestic Abuse and Prevention Services. I am here in solidarity with the Young Gifted and Black Coalition. We're calling for a people's injunction of the proposed $8 million to further renovations of or building of a new county jail. We recognize an injunction is normally defined as a court-demanded order that requires a party to refrain from specific action. While not court-ordered, we call on the PP&J to put a hold on the $8 million while a plan is put together to spend it for building people and not the jail, to reallocate it to Black community-led programs or Black community-led stuff, and find ways to keep people out of jail first. Yes. We demand for an injunction of the proposed $8 million for remodeling or building a new jail and for the money to be reallocated to Black community-led resources. We demand the release of 350 Black people incarcerated due to crimes of poverty from the Dane County Jail. We demand the end of solitary confinement, the elimination of solitary confinement. To add to that, my grandfather was a police chief of his hometown, and I know for a fact that he has racist bias and unconscious racist bias because he raised my father, who has racist bias and unconscious racist bias, who raised me. And I, as a white woman who grew up in Madison, have racist bias and unconscious racist bias, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's what we're talking about. Okay. Also, I live on Monroe Street. I work on Monroe Street, and I go to school on Monroe Street. I also work on the south side. I can tell you the exact moment when I know I drive from my neighborhood, my white neighborhood, into the south side of Madison because of the number of police cars that are there. And when I take a U-turn in my community, there's no problem. But when I take a U-turn in the south side of Madison, and the police officer pulls up behind me and waits for my face to show up in that mirror, and my face shows up in that mirror as a white woman, and then they drive away. Come on now. He wanted to intimidate me first, and then when he saw my white face and my new car, he drove away. Thank you.
Ann Pooler to be followed by Carol Rubin.
Yes, hi, thanks. I am with Moses, with the Moses Jail Task Force, and we have concerned citizens who have been working very hard all these months to learn more about the Dane County criminal justice system and the jail situation. And I also teach philosophy, and I have to say there's this abysmal disconnect where people are talking past each other, and I'm afraid that we're going through this empty theater of citizens protesting and talking about alternatives to jail instead of these proposals to build new jails or remodel old jails to add new beds. The disconnect with that is the concern for the safety of the people inside the city-county building, right, which was built in 1956. We know that there are some jails that lock, and people are not putting those two pieces together. I'm sorry, there are some locks that stick. The disconnect is the realization that the number of locks that actually stick in the city-county building only involve about 20 cells, or 20 people in that jail. We have 74 empty beds in the Huber facility right now. There are empty beds in the city-county building. I saw them. Take a tour. You know what else? It is not all that bad a building. I have read the 637-page Mead and Hunt report. I have read their description and their photographs of the physical facilities, and it is not as bad as the housing that a lot of people in this city live in. The point is that because you have some sticky old locks that can't be fixed and can't be replaced for 20 people in the city-county building jail does not mean you build a new jail.
Perspective.
Does not mean you add 4 floors to the city-county public service building. The disconnect is right there. That's why we're all saying to you, no, no, no. First you stop unnecessary incarceration.
Right. Yeah,
today, this week.
Right now.
In weeks. You could get people out of those locks that stick. There's no need for most people to be in this jail.
Right.
That's why we're saying, first, you stop unnecessary incarceration, which we are doing every single day here. You stop the unnecessary incarceration. Mark Hoover just started a bail loan program, a private one, to get past the state law. He just started it with the public defender and the DA a couple weeks ago. They're already stopping people from going into jail with a bail loan program. They're trying to get more funding for it. There are 24% of the people in Dane County Jail, according to the Mead and Hunt data, are eligible for Huber. 25% of them, out of about beds of about, I don't know what the beds are.
150 people.
It's only 20 beds where the locks stick. There are empty beds elsewhere. Things can be fixed. And solitary use has a lot to do with our jail's policies. Let me tell you.
Let's go.
Time's up. They could be changed soon.
Yes.
All right, all power to the people.
Carol, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a member of Moses. As the prior two speakers, I think, were, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I have two things I need to say. One is in response to the first speaker tonight who talked about the bad people in jail. And I think of my friend who spent a total of 230 days in the Dane County Jail because DOC issued a warrant for his arrest for a GPS system maintained by DOC which doesn't work.
Yeah.
He was never charged. 230 plus days in the Dane County Jail.
Wow.
So I want to hear about all the bad people in the Dane County Jail.
Let's go.
Secondly, I got a letter from a friend who's in jail today who enclosed the collection notice from the collection agency for his court fees. I think they were for $280. And of course, he went from the Dane County Jail, from the Dane County Court, immediately to prison, where he's been, and he doesn't have money. And now he has a collection action out for the Dane County court fees. And when he gets out soon and applies for employment, they'll probably do a credit check on him. And he's got an outstanding, amount of money. So that's just one example of this cycle of how the poverty feeds into itself. Why would Dane County, put out a collection notice for someone who they know has been sitting in jail ever since they convicted him of a non-violent crime? Thank you.
That's all the slips we had. Did we miss
I got a
anybody?
slip. Yeah, I got this
Okay,
one.
tell us your name.
Bev Ward.
Go ahead and Bev, talk.
Okay,
We'll see if
yeah,
we can-
thanks. I just want to say that I appreciate everyone who is here tonight, and all the work and thought that you're putting into this, and I've learned some things from the testimony. I appreciate that. And I also want to say that I am here tonight in solidarity with the Young Gifted and Black Coalition. They got me out of my chair tonight and down here. And I appreciate that leadership and that vision of how important it is to change where we're headed and what we've been doing, and to just jumpstart us a little to stop defending, the way we always do things and the way things are done, and get some of these more creative ideas coming up. And I don't understand all of this stuff, but I did read an article about the monitoring program, and I really appreciate that that's helped decrease the number of people in jail. But I understand one of the problems with that is that, again, that's disparate impact.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Because people of color aren't getting out of jail.
That's right.
Who are eligible for this aren't getting out of jail with this monitoring program. So that's just one thing I didn't hear get said, that I thought I wanted to add, and I certainly want to piggyback on what Carol said about the people in jail. There are fathers and mothers and brothers and family members. There are people that need to be with their families, and the communities will actually be safer if they're with their families and they can go to work.
1 minute.
and they can earn money and they can build relationships in the community, our community will actually be safer on getting these people out of jail, that demands that we're talking about here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Did we miss somebody else?
Yeah,
Come on up, come on up. So, tell us your name. You fill out a who's good?
I did.
Okay, we're just in the wrong
Here,
pile.
what's your name? Joan Durst.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Joan Durst. I'm older, I'm seasoned, and I'm white. And I grew up in white Madison. And my ancestors made sure that I was segregated from people of color and Native Americans. And now, I am still being segregated because we are locking up our black and other people of color citizens. And so I am really pleased to be here with Young, Gifted, and Black, to hear that their voices are being heard or being said in this body. And I appreciate Sheriff Mahoney for showing us that we have a crisis in our county, so that it has brought about this conversation. And we have PP&J, I'm sorry I can't get all the right.
You got it right.
Okay, and the thoughts that you have given to this, and the struggle that you are having to decide, you know, how do we keep the prisoners safe, and yet how do we look long-term? And we've heard from Young, Gifted, and Black already, the 350 that could be set free. Another place that it seems we have a lot of people that have to go through our jail doesn't necessarily have to do with our county, but the Department of Corrections. How do we work with them so that people who are on parole, probation, do not have to be housed in a holding pattern when there's some thing that happened that has to do with their parole violation, not a crime.
Right.
There are thousands of people like that who go through our county jail every year. We don't need that. So thanks to PP&J, thanks for Young, Gifted, and Black, and thanks for bringing this conversation to our community. Let's all be one and keep this segregation from our brothers and sisters, our children, our grandchildren in the future. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, we did, okay. What's your name?
Nico, I put it in the wrong file. I put it in the just speak.
Okay, another Nico.
I thought you wanted to speak.
Go ahead, Nico.
Right, thank you. I'll keep this brief. This was about listening to your constituents, and I think in this room, as we've shown in the past, gosh, 3-4 meetings, we have everything we would need to create a work group or just something to be at the table and talking about solutions that are equitable for the communities that are experiencing it. Folks here in this room are the experts. So, really, I just want to conclude by saying how happy I am as a white person to see other white folks who are stepping up. Indeed, white capitalist power structures really rely on that deception and deceiving white folks about the idea, the societal construct of race. Well, hopefully you all have seen that for some of the white folks in this space, we're self-selecting out of that myth, that bullshit. All right, so that's really all I want to say. Thank you, Sheriff Mahoney. Know that if you continue to walk and move with integrity, white folks will stand behind you. Maybe not all of them. You know, there's some bad apples, but we will stand behind you. So keep up and continue the good work. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, folks, for listening as well and giving different input as well. So, all power to the people.
All power to the people.
Okay. And looking around, did we miss anybody? Okay. All right, motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Baird, seconded by Supervisor Pan, that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
I'm done. Oh, I got a parking ticket.
Thank you.
Okay.